or so. As the music plays, just close your eyes and be in silence within yourself and just rest in the presence and hold space.
Da Namo
Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to our weekly online satsang. Satsang being a Sanskrit word that means community of truth. But essentially, it applies whenever there's a spiritual community of people on the path of awakening and transformation come together. Two or more, there's a satsang, by definition, really. And it's an important part of our spiritual journey. We need to share our journey with others, share our challenges, receive their support, their insight, their strength. Our depth of spirit is multiplied when we come together and connect and share the presence that is generated in our awakened consciousness. So that's what the world needs right now, is a shift in the collective consciousness. It's not all about individual awakening, but that's how it happens, one person at a time. When enough people have become awakened, have shifted from the illusion of separate existence into the living experience of oneness, the collective consciousness of humanity will shift at that point, when enough of us have awakened. The battle plan for those that didn't want to wake up through the millennia was to kill the light givers, and that happened with Christ and Gandhi and Buddha, and we just keep going down the list. But there's way too many of us now who are awakening and awakened to stop it. It's the most contagious pandemic on the planet. It's one of consciousness, and positive awakened consciousness is much, much more powerful than darkness, than delusional consciousness of the unawakened. The world right now is in the clutches of an ancient form of civilization rooted in competition, conflict, and war. We can all see that. It needs to shift into one of cooperation, harmony, and peace. Cooperation instead of competition. Harmony instead of conflict. And peace instead of war. And that happens one person at a time, but our larger vision today is an entire generation that is awakening into oneness, or what in the Christian mystical tradition would be called Christ consciousness. Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote extensively about Christianity and the Bible, trying to show how that all these different spiritualities, in his case Hinduism and Christianity, were really parallel and compatible in some ways. And he talked about the second coming of Christ as being a generation that would awaken together into Christ consciousness and bring transformation to the world. Now, he passed away back in 1954, so we really didn't see it happen. But we're living in that time where an entire generation is awakening into direct experience and awareness of our oneness, that there is at the heart of the universe one being, a supreme being that is supremely conscious. There is only one consciousness, and it's manifesting the entire universe and emanating through the entire universe and sharing its consciousness with and through each one of us. So if we go deep enough inside, we discover that you and I are one being, experiencing and expressing itself through very uniquely different human personas. But at the core, we're one. When the scales of illusion fall from our eyes and we see it, we look into each other's eyes and we see ourselves looking back at us through the eyes of the other. And the fear goes away. The fear that you might take advantage of me or manipulate me or hurt me or cause me some harm that causes the ego to click in, and all that competition and protectiveness that leads to war and conflict, all that just vanishes because we look into each other's eyes and we feel we're more than family. We're one and the same. And so I'm not afraid of you anymore, and you're not afraid of me, and there's immediately cooperation and harmony and peace. That's where we're going. That's the reason for so many spiritual teachers being alive on this planet at this time, essentially giving away awakening. It used to be hard to get. And now there are awakened teachers that are transmitting enlightenment, awakened consciousness. And it's happening everywhere. We share one in these satsangs and in the processes that we offer at Flowering Heart Center called the Flowering Heart Blessing, which the Divine showed us over 7 years ago, though I'm sure it's quite ancient. The Flowering Heart Blessing is like many other forms of blessing or Diksha or Shaktipad or the names in different traditions and languages. All the great mystical traditions have some transmission of awakened consciousness. The thing is that often the only way to receive these transmissions is to join an organization or a group and adopt a belief system. The Divine showed us the Flowering Heart Blessing and said this belongs to no spiritual tradition or teacher or avatar or hierarchy or organization. It belongs to me, the Divine, and whoever I give it to. And I give it freely as a gift of grace. I want to give it to as many people as want to awaken and be transformed. And so the Divine said, here it is. This is what I want you to share with people. And our hearts just exploded. And we experienced a profound focus on the inner Divine, awakening and then beginning to shine outward from the center. When you discover that the one you're looking for and the doorway to the consciousness that you're seeking is within you, it frees you from an excessive dependence on external teachers and processes and belief systems and places of power, all of which can be very useful along the way, but eventually we need to discover the outer world's a reflection of the inner world. All the light you see in the face of a saint or the face of your master or your guru is a mirror being held up to you, reflecting to you the light that's shining at the core of your being. If it wasn't, you wouldn't see it in their face, because they're just selfless mirrors of the light. And the idea is to realize that what you see in your teacher is you, and to turn inside and go into the center of the heart and make contact, which once we do that, it begins to supernova and shine out through spirit, soul, body, relationships, and transform our lives. So the Flowering Heart Blessing is all about that. And it does bring awakening and transformation and divine union, which is nice. And it's free. It's a gift of grace, no charge. And the initiation, to be able to give it to others, the Divine said, tell them that when they receive this blessing, they're instantly initiated and activated to be able to share it, either through touch with informed consent, laying your hands lightly on someone's head, or to distance in meditation or prayer by intention. And it's lovely. So join us. You're all soaking in it right now. So just invite the Divine to pour the Flowering Heart Blessing not only to you, but through you. And join us throughout the webcast satsang in just flowing the Flowering Heart Blessing out to everyone who's participating with us this evening, and anyone that watches this video recording ongoing forever. Because in spirit, there's no time or separation in space. It's always here and now. When you wake up tomorrow morning, what time is it? It's now. And where are you? Here. In spirit, it's always that. So when there are recorded spiritual teachings or meditations or prayers, anytime you listen to it or watch it, you feel the power, the energy of it. I was mentioning Paramahansa Yogananda. There's a video of him that's out on YouTube. I, Paramahansa Yogananda, am praying. And he leads this bolt, but you can feel it. I mean, it's dynamic. So if you need more introduction to blessing and the initiation of the Flowering Heart blessing, go to our website, floweringheart.org, and there are links on the main page and all over the place for the Blessing Giver initiation. It's a 36-minute video. It's brief. You can invite a friend or two over, pull it up on your laptop or your desktop, hit play, and 36 minutes later, you now have a blessing group that is ready to share powerful spiritual blessings with each other. And if you don't have one already that you're going to, that someone else is offering, we would invite you and encourage you to start a blessing group right there, right where you are. Communion this Sunday, because we usually do once a month an interfaith communion with the cosmic Christ. Interfaith, everybody's welcome. Do not have to be Christian, don't have to be a believer, just have an attraction and want to experience. What our focus is on is the cosmic Christ, which is that aspect of the divine that has existed forever. You could relate to Christ in various ways. A lot of, certainly Christians, relate to the human incarnation, Jesus of Nazareth. But the cosmic Christ has always been and always will be. It is the spark of divinity at the center of every human. Not just the awakened, it's in everybody. In rocks and trees and planets and stars and galaxies, at the center of everything is a spark of the divine that holds the blueprint for transformation. And it's pure, unconditional love and mercy. And so our communion services are an opportunity to really make contact and experience that particular aspect of the divine. And because the last Sunday of the month, which is when we usually do it, falls on December 25th, Christmas, we're going to do it this coming Sunday, December 18th. And the theme of the meditation is prepare a highway for our God. And I encourage you to come join us physically here at Flowering Heart Center, or tune in live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, LinkedIn, YouTube. It's streaming to all those platforms. And but the recording will be up. If you can't join us then, you can watch it at another time. What else?
Click like or love.
If you're here, please, if you're on Facebook Live, give us a like or a love, a heart or a thumbs up, because if you don't post something in the chat like Michael and Tristan have already done, we won't know you were here. But if you give us a heart or a thumbs up, then at the end we can go in and see your name, and we just send you special hugs and love and blessings. And it blesses us to know that you dropped in. If you are, and I see we have some on Vimeo, if you just enter your name in the chat, or just say namaste or hey you, if your screen name is actually you, then we'll know who you were and that you were here. So thank you. What we do now is what?
I don't know how people do that. Set up those things of, it's all right.
Yeah.
Clouds of likes and hearts, and it's fun. I'm not very good with Facebook. We got questions?
Well, yeah, and I want to take them as they came.
Oh, wow. Good job, guys.
Yeah, so we open it to questions and answers on the spiritual journey about awakening, God realization, meditation, challenges or obstacles you might be facing, breakthroughs and insights you've experienced. Feel free to share. And if you seek further clarity or insight about something you're dealing with, that's the most powerful, and it helps the entire community when you share your questions. So I see there are already some there. We're just going to dive right in.
Okay.
Tristan writes, are people who are having psychosis in an illusion? Or are they perceiving a reality that's real in another time and space dimension? What is the difference? Can a person who is in psychosis reach enlightenment in their lifetime and be prosperous? Yes. Yes to the final question, yes. A person who is experiencing psychosis can certainly reach enlightenment and be prosperous. And there are several things I want to touch on here. One is a famous story by Chuang Tzu, who was one of the great Taoist Chinese masters. And he writes, "Last night I dreamt that I was a butterfly." And he expresses great freedom and joy in that. "And now I awaken as a man. How do I know that I'm not a butterfly dreaming I'm a man? Am I really the butterfly or am I the man?" That can be the problem that people who are having what are labeled as psychotic experiences, certainly that dream or that illusion they're experiencing could have some reality in another dimension in time and space. However, and I'm just going to read you the definition. Psychosis is a severe mental disorder in which thought and emotions are so impaired that contact is lost with external reality. That would suggest someone is caught in an illusion or a dream that is not real. But who's to say what's real?
Right.
That was so I started with that. Who's to say what's real? Well, it's not what the psychotic person is experiencing is not the same reality as other people are experiencing. It's something other than that. Psychosis involves a loss of contact with reality. It is present in many conditions, including schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Hallucinations and delusions are its most common symptoms. So the quickest way, if you're bipolar or schizophrenic, it's not the same, but to get labeled psychotic schizophrenic or bipolar disorder with psychosis is if there are hallucinations or delusions present. So we're talking about a delusional reality that for all intents and purposes appears not to be real. What is psychosis? A loss of contact with reality, typically including delusions, false ideas about what's taking place or who you are. And I'll say more about that. And hallucinations, seeing and hearing things that aren't there. However, if you tell some psychiatrist that you're seeing spirit beings or seeing auras or seeing angels, you're very likely to get labeled psychotic. When I personally see auras and I see spirit beings and I see angels and I've seen divine beings and beings in other dimensions. But there is a difference. One of the things I learned in India, and I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't prove it, but it's upheld by the work of Andrew Newberg, who's one of the great neuroscientists alive today, who's in the United States, is that in awakened experiences or states of consciousness, there are shifts that happen in the brain. The parts of the brain that locate us in time and space are relaxed because they're just overamped in most people. We need to have a sense of time, but not like be stuck in time, because time's just a concept. And in spirit, there is no time, there's just now. And we need to be aware of the boundaries of space so we don't walk into walls or drive off the edge of a cliff or drive into a tree. But we have such an exaggerated sense of location in space, we feel separate. When the parietal lobes relax a little bit, we experience timelessness and spaciousness. And energy, typically in these more awakened states, shifts to the prefrontal cortex. if it focuses, and I don't know why, but this was just an observation that scientists have observed, that where the energy predominantly focuses in the left prefrontal cortex, it gives genuine experiences of God realization, of divine union. Where it predominantly focuses in the right prefrontal cortex, it's more likely to produce psychotic hallucinations like, I am the second coming of Christ. Well, actually, we are the second coming. Well, maybe we are a bit. No, but I mean, distorted ideas of who you are. Delusions, rather than I'm one with the divine, saying, I am the divine, bow down to me. And so there's a fine line between spiritual vision and psychotic hallucinations. That said, there was and he's come up in conversation with several people I've been talking to the last few days, someone that many of us in the psychological world respect, R.D. Laing. Ronald Laing is considered, he wasn't actually the father of existential psychology, but he might as well have been. He, back in the 60s, wrote these amazing books based on research he was doing. One I love in particular is The Politics of Experience. But he said, you can't define what reality is for me. He was an existentialist. What's real is what you're experiencing. And he said, our concept of sanity is based on being normal. I just said, the psychotic's reality doesn't match everybody else's, but are they necessarily wrong? Now that's the trick. And he said, Laing said, so the normal human being is quite messed up. So he said, if we base our concept and our psychological definitions of sanity on normal humanity, we're in trouble. So he looked at it differently, and Laing, he was involved in some of the early research with psychedelics back in the 1960s. He knew all those guys, Leary and Richard Alpert and others that were doing that kind. But Laing was a psychiatrist in Great Britain. He'd grown up on the streets of Liverpool, had to be a street fighter, got beat up a lot as a kid, but basically it made him tough. And he didn't fear violence. So he would go into insane criminal asylums where they kept violent, psychotic people that were convicted of serious crimes. I mean, violent murders and things. And because he was a psychiatrist, and this was all funded, allowed research, he was permitted to go into the cells of psychotic individuals who were just ravingly insane, and he would drop acid with them. He thought they were like out in space and they made a wrong turn somewhere. What they needed to do was not just be drugged or like electroshocked, they needed to go all the way through into the light. And so he would sit with them and they would dose on LSD, and he, without any fear, he would look them in the eyes and he would journey with them and bring them out the other side, which was pretty amazing stuff. So Laing would, really challenge the contemporary notions of sanity, psychosis, etc. You look like you wanted to add to that.
No, you pretty much said more than I would have had to add.
So, but it's tricky, to perceive the difference, whether this so-called person with psychosis is having problems because the barriers, the veils between the earth plane and other dimensions of the astral planes and other places may have grown thin and they can't deal with it. That's when they need an awakened spiritual teacher who can connect with them wherever they are and gently tune them and get them back online. So, yes, there's hope. All right. Ekaterina says, today is Guadalupe, Virgen de Guadalupe Day in Mexico. It is said she is a black Madonna, as the Medjugorje Virgin of Medjugorje, and others, and that they help transmute the darkness in the world, and that's why they are black. What can you say about this? Well, we love this. Some of our kids brought this back from Europe, and this is a black Madonna. I think for many, the Madonna represents the feminine divine. And if you could only see the feminine divine as a white woman with blue eyes, that would be sad if you were a person of color. I've seen the beautiful, miraculous cloth of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And she's not black, she's dark, because she came to Juan Diego, and it was a miraculous appearance to an indigenous person in Mexico. The indigenous people in Mexico had been conquered by the Spanish, forcefully indoctrinated into Catholicism, and treated basically like dirt, often enslaved. And so the Divine Mother, expressing through the Virgin Mary, wanted to send a message to the indigenous people of Mexico, and she appeared to Juan Diego and said, tell your people, they're beloved too. I have a special affection for the Mexican people and all the indigenous people of all colors. And he said, they're never going to believe me. They're not going to believe this. And so she said, open your tunic, And when he opened his tunic, there was an image that miraculously was imprinted on it of the Virgin of Guadalupe. And out fell all these rose blossoms at a place and time of the year when that wasn't natural. It was a supernatural manifestation, and that beautiful cloth hangs in the Basilica of Guadalupe in Ciudad de Mexico, and go see it if you can. But I think it's the same. There's a similar message in the Madonnas of color, and a lot of them called black Madonnas, is that the divine is for all people, especially those who are outcast, those who aren't appreciated, aren't respected, aren't taken care of. So Mary has gone out of her way through the centuries to appear in special ways to different indigenous peoples throughout the world. And so that's that. Okay. Tristan has another question. People describe different Shaktis having different results. Example, violet flame, golden orb Diksha, meditation of a white light, blue fire. Can you explain this? Isn't God's light one? Absolutely. Absolutely. The easiest way to look at it would be a prism. You hit a prism with pure white light, and it refracts into the seven colors of the rainbow. So with the divine light, it's just one. When you take all the colors of the rainbow in the world of light and you blend them together, the result is white light. So where all the colors come together, there it is. But the divine can manifest on different levels of reality, like the chakras within our bodies. The root chakra is red. The sacral or sex chakra is orange. The third chakra, the power chakra, is yellow. The heart chakra is beautiful emerald green. The throat chakra, turquoise blue. The third eye chakra is indigo blue, and the crown chakra is purple. Number 7, the seventh ray, the purple flame. That is our interface with the universal grid, the crown chakra. So purple's a very high spiritual color. But when you put them all together, it's white light. It's actually quite invisible. You can't see light when it's shining through space. Look up in the sky at night. You see the stars, you see the planets, but you see all this empty space that's black. But it's full of light. You just can't see the light. It's traveling through all that empty space, and you only see it when it hits something and reflects. And so it is with the divine light. It's always everywhere, all the time. Want to add anything to that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Your questions, man. Okay, Michael Christopher says, I triggered someone's stuff, and they had such a reaction that it left me speechless. How can I keep their reaction from affecting me that I'm not stunned into not being able to respond? Well, there's a learning curve there. I thought it was funny when you said you set off a charge in them and it left you speechless. If you'd been speechless in the first place, it wouldn't have set off a charge. Just teasing, Michael. But I get it. So as we grow in non-reactive acceptance, as the heart flowers, we experience deeper and deeper levels of unconditional love and acceptance. First of all, for ourselves, I think. That's the first thing that hits you is, oh my God, God loves me. The supreme consciousness of the universe thinks I'm cool and lovable. And your own self-loathing and self-judgment begins to melt away. It begins to literally dissolve and melt away in the divine presence. When that takes hold of you, you experience unconditional love for others. Initially, those that are easy to love, but as it grows, you find unconditional love for all beings. That is our true nature, is to be unconditionally loving of all. So when we trigger someone, and accidentally, if there's no judgment, it's not like, what's wrong with them? This doesn't feel good. It's like we just accept it and experience it, and we don't have to fix them, which is rough because you want to rush in and go, oh, I'm so sorry. And sometimes you just need to let it be. It depends. I mean, if you triggered them because you were insensitive, which is often what we do, we're insensitive and something we say or do offends or hurts the other, then if we can see that, that's great. But your question is, how can I keep their reaction from affecting me, that I'm not stunned into not being able to respond? You can't keep their reaction from affecting you, but the less resistance you have, the more acceptance you have of it, the less you will find yourself being stunned into not being able to respond. Sometimes, however, not responding right away is exactly the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, we're not last. We got all these questions tonight. Okay. Can marijuana mess with someone's aura? How do I explain to hippies who are in belief of cannabis culture and take parts of it to further their narrative of being a plant of enlightenment? Yeah, okay. First of all, it's not just hippies. Cannabis is part of many cultures, other cultures in the world, and it's part of their spiritual life. The Lord Shiva in the Hindu tradition is one of the Hindu Trinity. He was known for just spending days on end in the Himalayas, getting high on ganja and meditating. When Swami Muktananda came to the United States back in the early 70s, I got to meet him, and that question was put to him. And he said, the problem is not that you Americans are smoking marijuana. He said, it's that you don't know how to smoke marijuana. He said, you need to prepare it in a certain way, and it's done, with sacredness and mantra. And he said, and you need to know how to cleanse your consciousness and tune into the light. And he proceeded, to my amazement, to tell all these young people in Southern California back in 72, I think, how Indian sadhus applied this. I could name other cultures, I'm not going to get into it, where it's considered to be a sacred plant and even sacramental, which means that the divine actually is believed to flow through it. I have seen, to start with your question, marijuana can mess with somebody's aura. I remember years ago, I could see instantly in someone's aura if they were a pot smoker. And it was just slightly off kilter. Then I encountered other people that remained absolutely clear when they ingested marijuana. And it had to do with the focus of their intention for doing it. I mean, was this to get intoxicated and party? Or were they going into meditation with a practice that could focus that energy? I remember an interview with Drunvalo Melchizedek, who's a very, very respected shaman and spiritual teacher. And he was asked, he said, well, what I have to say about marijuana was, there was a point in my life where it opened doors for me. And it actually opened the door out of normal, ordinary states of consciousness to see that there's more. He said, I don't need that now. But it was a positive thing at the time. So I'm not encouraging anybody, but at the same time, if you come from a sacred tradition where that is sacramental, I also don't want to disrespect that. I mean, plant medicine is not my path. But I know many people who have been involved in the shamanic traditions of the Amazon, for whom ayahuasca opened the door for the experience of the divine for them. That's not my way. But at the same time, it's part of a very ancient, very solid tradition. And I'm not going to put any more time into it. What I do like to tell young people that I think are excessively caught up in the cannabis culture, I like to offer to teach them Taoist internal alchemy. It's a deeper dimension of Qigong that actually works with Kundalini in the Taoist way. And they can take their own internal energies through meditation and breath work and learn to produce naturally those same neurological chemicals that open the door to higher states of consciousness without any use of drugs. And I'll say, if you're willing to try, set that aside and let me teach you Taoist meditation and Qigong and internal alchemy, and see if you don't like it better. That was one of the attractions to Kundalini Yoga of the 3HO, Yogi Bhajan's version of Kundalini Yoga. There was somebody teaching it at the original Woodstock to all these young people that were smoking marijuana and tripping on acid, and there's this woman saying, there's another way here. And I remember when it was introduced in Southern California when I was living out there, and a lot of people were, I was completely clean at that point because I had discovered something so beautiful, and it was the Taoist internal alchemy. But I had a bunch of friends and acquaintances that were into Kundalini Yoga, and it was something that got them away from psychedelics. They didn't need, because the Kundalini Yoga they were teaching us back then in California, 20 minutes of it and you would just be in an incredibly high state. And I mean, seeing energy and colors and people were going, huh. So, just saying. We just got so much here tonight.
I know, it's great.
John Lewis, microdoses of LSD are being used today for the treatment of serious depression. Back in the day, I had taken LSD, but that experience was in no comparison to my first spiritual experience. Yeah, right. And not just LSD, other things, psilocybin, ketamine, are being used by competent mental health counselors and doctors to break the addiction cycle and help people to regain their souls, basically. It's often microdoses, very small amounts. Again, that's not my path, but there's too much being done by really evolved spiritual beings to just discount entirely this thing that's going on. John says, if you go around the world, Christ tends to be depicted as the local population. Yeah. Yeah, got some black Jesuses out there too. Yep, I like it. So what about CBD oil for medicinal purposes? Well, we don't really discuss medicine. Look, I have friends who swear by CBD is an oil a substance that's extracted from hemp, minus the THC 9, which is the psychoactive compound that people get high on. It's supposed to help a lot of people with pain management, inflammation, taken internally or rubbed on externally. We don't recommend or prescribe anything here. People talk me into once or twice taking a few drops when I don't know if I had a headache or what was wrong, rub a little on an inflamed joint. I never experienced much. But I know, and medicines and herbal medicine can vary from person to person. Absolutely nothing wrong with CBD. It helps many people, I know that. So, you be the judge of that. But whenever it's possible to go the natural way, I encourage it. But who's to say that plant medicine isn't the natural way?
Right.
You know?
We have a very dear friend who had to have a series of back surgeries, and she was a career ER nurse that was retired, and she said, I don't know what they're putting in these pain meds now, but they were never this addicting before. And she was having a hard time getting off of them because they were so addictive. But she's very holistic and does homeopathy and natural, supplements and in the whole 9 yards. And she had somebody get her some chocolate that had cannabis in it, and every night before bed, which is when she had the hard time sleeping because of the pain, she would make a little cup of hot cocoa and drink it. And she said that within like a week and a half she was able to get off her pain meds and was able to sleep without nearly as much pain. So that's just one testimony that I've heard. But
yeah, that was remarkable.
It was remarkable.
A real degeneration of the spine, tremendous pain constantly, and prescription opioids that, not good.
And she said she feels bad for others that aren't conscious of pain medications and what they can do to you and how they can mess up your life. She said, I was determined to get off of them, but you think of all of these other people that don't have that kind of consciousness and they just keep staying on it, and it slowly starts to, affect your life pretty seriously. So, and
that's why, like, more than half the states in the United States of America have legalized medical marijuana. Because it's been proven enough that the medical and that the medical industry is hard to convince of anything, but doctors are convinced of at least many of them enough that it's become legalized all over the place. Certain therapeutic benefits for certain conditions, that it's been very helpful. I know people that have had, terrible cancer and are on chemotherapy can feel very sick to their stomachs and blah, blah, blah. And I can hear a doctor I know right now yelling at me, but there are prescriptions that do it better. Well, maybe so, but a friend of mine who died of cancer a number of years ago was prescribed these synthetic, like Marinol and some of the synthetics. It didn't work. And somebody brought her cannabis, and her nausea went away and she could eat. I mean, she did pass away, but the journey was smoother for her. So that's all I'm saying. Final question. Tristan asks, can there be Siddhas who are not enlightened walking in every culture? Is there a difference between Siddha masters and just Siddhas who wander the planet? Well, a Siddha master could wander the planet. What is a Siddha? Actually, a Siddha is a master of Kundalini Yoga who has yogic powers that have been manifested in them. Siddhis are yogic powers. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi in the TM movement didn't focus on Kundalini at all. But he taught about the yogic siddhis because if you meditate or you do yoga long enough, you may start to experience these paranormal abilities that are described in the Vedas that are pretty cool. So that doesn't mean you're enlightened. The fact that you have all these siddhis does not mean you're enlightened. There's a famous Siddha in India. And the senior disciple of Ramana Maharshi was Papaji. Papaji heard that this Siddha was in the area and all kinds of legends about him. So he set out to meet him. And the Siddha is like telling him all about how great his powers are. And he demonstrates all the siddhis, the powers. He demonstrated this great Siddha, these powers, to Papaji. And Papaji said, well, let me ask you this. Are you enlightened? And the Siddha said, honestly, no. He was very evolved, very developed, but not, he did not have mukti, liberation. And Papaji said, would you like to be? And he said, oh yes, of course I would. And in the twinkling of an eye, Papaji grabbed the yogic staff that had been passed from guru to disciple through generations of this Siddha tradition, grabbed the staff that was the link to their power lineage, and he snapped it, broke it in two, and tossed it into the Ganges. He said, now, go live and die as a normal man, and maybe you'll attain mukti. Powers can really get in the way. There are a lot of people, not just yogis, people who through meditation and esoteric practices have released dormant abilities that are resident in all human beings but not usually manifest. And they can believe and persuade others that because they can levitate or they can see spirits or auras or they have certain telepathic abilities that they're enlightened when they're not. So it's something else. It's better to keep your eye on the prize. If the divine wants to give you special cities, great. But yes, there are powerful beings wandering the planet with paranormal abilities that are not awakened. So keep that in mind. Find an awakened one. Okay. Whew.
Nice. We don't usually have that many.
Felt breathless just getting through those tonight. But great questions. Thank you. Thank you for diving in tonight. Some weeks we can hardly pull a question out of you.
I know.
And tonight they just...
Avalanche.
Yep.
Awesome.
So close your eyes. And we're going to go right to the intent blessing. So what we'd like to ask you to do now is, with your eyes closed, just invoke the presence. Open yourself to the presence. Welcome the presence as the flowering heart blessing flows to you, in you, through you. This being, this presence that we're all floating in right now and dwells within each of us is pure love. It's all powerful, all knowing, all wise, and loves you unconditionally exactly as you are. It knows exactly what you need to be set free, and it wants to free you. So just receive. Receive, drink in the flowering heart blessing. Nothing you need to do, but just drink it in, soak it up, receive the grace that's flowing to you now. to open your eyes as we enter the light meditation, the open eye light meditation. During this time, Suzanne and I are just flooded with the presence. And oceans of grace and light and love flow through every pore of our being to you, especially through our eyes, called by mystics the doorways of the soul. Just keep looking at Suzanne's eyes and or mine, or at least one of our eyes. And there's nothing else to do. The light streams through our eyes into Keep meditating as long as it feels good to you. Or lie down nearby in Shavasana. That's to lie on your back, with your arms loosely at your sides, with your palms open, turned upward. And just let yourself dissolve in the presence in gratitude. We love you very much.
Much love, light, and blessings.
Until the next time we meet, know that the divine within us acknowledges and